Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Keilani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Keilani, and I'm here with my co-host, James.
Good morrow. I can never think of what to say.
Greetings.
Yeah. I was going to say ladies, but then that already got played out the last episode.
Yeah, you got to mix it up, man.
Yeah.
Come prepared.
Yeah.
Come prepared.
Okay.
Today we are talking about empathy. And it's funny that this is actually not a topic we've covered yet.
Yeah, because we don't care. Sorry.
How would you define empathy, James?
Like feeling bad for people, you know, caring about how they feel.
Yeah, that's a part of empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy is about vicariously understanding someone's experiences, thoughts, and emotions, and being able to respond appropriately in those situations. But there's different types of empathy.
Okay.
So let's break it down. Let's understand it. And I guess the general question is maybe, why is empathy important? Is it important?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something we can be floating around in the back of our mind as we talk about this. So the different types of empathy are cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, and compassionate empathy. So I feel like your grasp of cognitive empathy was kind of accurate. Understanding, you can understand someone else's perspective. So if a friend shares that something hard happened, you can understand, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
So it's also, you can take their perspective, you can recognize how they might be feeling and thinking. And so it allows you to really act appropriately, probably in empathetic situations, not just in relationships or friendships, but in business too. We need to have empathy. And I don't think that people often think of that empathy is necessary in not just co-working situations, but in leaders and business leaders.
Yeah. Well, I love the little definition that you gave, the word vicariously, because it's you feel the feelings of other people. And compassion, empathy are synonyms. I use the word compassion all the time. But the idea, somebody in leadership above you, to feel empathy for them is I think that's what you're describing, right?
I think that someone can have compassion without empathy.
Oh, tell me more.
Not without empathy, but without, as we're talking through these different types.
Okay.
That cognitive empathy, I can understand your perspective.
Okay.
And give compassion to you. But to feel someone else's feelings is different. That's different than compassion.
Okay.
So emotional empathy is to share in the same emotional state as that person, to actually feel what they're feeling, so not just have an idea that it stinks.
Okay, so compassion is or empathy is next level.
Yeah.
It's almost like a scale.
Yeah. I think we could look at it that way.
Okay, because there's a whole spectrum of different types of feeling other people's feelings.
Sure.
Or seeing other people's perspective. There's pity.
So it's the difference between if, let's see, what's a cause? If I...
Let's say I'm grieving a death.
If you're grieving, thank you. If you're grieving, it's the difference between me saying, oh, that's too bad, and sending flowers.
Thoughts and prayers.
Right?
Yeah.
That would be more that surface level, just cognitive empathy. Oh, I know that they're going through a hard time. And that's still showing compassion.
Yeah.
Right?
It's to acknowledge.
I'm acknowledging that you're going through a hard time. I can see that. I have those cues to understand. Emotional empathy would be me saying something or feeling, oh my gosh, I can't imagine what it would be like to lose someone like that in his life. And I just want to make sure that he knows that I care, and I want to check in, and oh my gosh, I'm aching for him. My heart is breaking for that loss.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it. And compassionate empathy, which this kind of combines then. This is exactly part of it. Compassionate empathy balances those two aspects.
Okay.
So now I'm able to also want to heal that. That's a part of the compassionate empathy. I'm also wanting to create a healing space or to have some kind of positive action, constructive action that can be helpful in some way. So now I might say, oh my gosh, James, I can't imagine that loss. I am so sorry. You know, let me come over and let me help clean your house. And now it's so difficult when things are so heavy. Tell me what you need.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever you need to make that load lighter right now, because I know it must feel so difficult.
Yeah. Okay. That's beautiful breakdown of that, because it's not so much synonymous. Yeah. It's just like,
it's leading with some kind of positive action without overwhelming the empathizer with an emotional distress. Like nothing about that is giving you an emotional sense of distress. It's trying to ease the distress.
Yeah, it's like an empath is what they're called, right?
An empath is someone who feels things deeply, and usually I think would have that compassionate empathy. I think it's compassionate empathy maybe on steroids, because I think it comes with a healthy dash of intuitiveness as well.
Well, the person who's feeling empathy, they have like the ability to kind of like feel the pain of the other person, and knowing that they just want to walk alongside them and kind of carry the burden for a little while, because they have that like superpower. Because I remember all the people who came alongside me during like my terrible times, and I'm so thankful for them. And they like the people that checked on me and called unsolicitedly, and because and they wouldn't let me like isolate.
It's like you see that person's humanity.
Yeah. Like, have you seen the movie? It's Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood about Mr. Rogers, Tom Hanks.
It's been a while, but yes.
That part where they're sitting in the diner or the restaurant, whatever, and he says, "I want you to just take a moment and think about all the people who loved you to where you are now." And that didn't really strike me when I first watched it.
I love that.
But then now that I've gone through like, a lot of pain and trauma recently, if I close my eyes and do that, I'll probably just get emotional if I try to do that right now. But like, I can think of a handful of people who loved me to where I am, and without them, and you're one of them, and without them, I probably wouldn't have made it, because they helped like kind of compel me forward. And
how beautiful is it for someone to say, like, I see your struggle and I'm here for you?
Well, it's so much more than that. It's more like you don't even acknowledge the struggle. It's like, I see your humanness, I see your value, and you don't, because you're so blinded
by that suffering, that pain.
Yeah, you're so crushed by like the circumstances or the pain. But it's like, no, I'm going to pull you out and you have the strength to, and because I still believe in you. You don't believe in yourself, but I believe in you. Like I was talking about this yesterday, actually, about this podcast where, sorry, I'm going on a big tangent, but I'm just going to run with it. I don't care.
I'm down.
But, how in that moment that you and I had talked, like first connected about this podcast, I was like at a point where I was heartbroken. I was isolated. I thought that like, there's nothing left for me. Like this, I'm washed up.
We've never talked about this.
Really? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So then I remember when you were like, I would love to start a podcast with you. I was like, why would you want to start a podcast? I remember thinking, why would you want to start a podcast with me? Like, I'm nothing. I'm nobody. Like, I'm past my prime, Like, I didn't. And so then, but that belief that I still had something to offer was like enough. It helped me a lot of times to really kind of believe in myself. Like, okay, if Keilani sees like that value that I can bring, then surely I still have that value. And then, I was, and then more and more people came along, and I became stronger, and then.
And the value that I saw is just you. It's just you being you.
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't know, and especially where we can value so many things in someone that are what they can do for us or what they,
true.
extraneous other outside factors. Like, it was just like, no, who James is, like, we vibe well together, and I want to see what could happen. Would you want to be curious with me, James?
Yeah.
And it's been so fun.
Well, thank you.
I'm so glad that you took my bait.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Made me a little bit misty. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
There, a common way that we describe empathy is saying walking in someone else's shoes, like that metaphor. And so it like highlights that ability to take someone else's perspective and understand their feelings and experiences. And I recall, I wish I could remember I don't know who this person was. I remember a conversation with someone, and I must have been, I want to say in my early 20s. And this was when I was honestly quite a bleeding heart. So when you have that compassionate empathy and you are a highly empathetic person, you also have to watch out for having healthy boundaries, because it could be a recipe for burnout. It can be a recipe for giving too much. And that I have done far too many times. So I found this nice, healthy balance. But back to what I was saying, I was in this conversation with someone in my early 20s. I don't recall who they were. And I remember saying, I want to have the ability to understand everyone's experience, even if they've done something terrible. They have a story. And I think maybe the conversation leaned a little bit into politics too. And like, well, I want to understand, all sides of the situation. I don't want to just kind of, I didn't use these words at the time, but this was my inner dialogue. Like, I don't want to just like pick a side and stick with it just because, or like, prescribe to like tribalism and just, this is what I believe because I feel like I need to believe in something without really analyzing it.
Yeah.
And the person, kind of in a gruff response, said something like, well, if you don't decide what you believe in, then you don't know who you are. Like, if you don't make that decision, you don't just commit to it fully, then you don't know who you are. And the idea of understanding other people, even the murderers, even the people who've done terrible things, is ridiculous. You just need to judge them because it's bad.
You were choosing to be curious and not judgmental, and they were choosing, like, just, dying on a hill.
Well, I'd assume that they might be someone who has low empathy, or maybe has been quite hurt and beat down by the world. But it's interesting that conversation stuck with me, because I think for a while I wondered, am I doing it wrong? Am I doing this life thing wrong because I can't help but care? Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing about like political issues is that people, they want to draw like super hard line in the sand. And I've heard that so many times, like, oh, if you don't like stand for something, you'll fall for anything, which, is kind of, but at the same time, it's like the best way to prevent future problems is to like learn from the people who are committing the problems. So if you just judge somebody based on their actions and behaviors without finding the source of why they did what they did, then it's never going to solve anything.
No. And I would also, understanding does not mean condoning. Like when I say that,
exactly.
want, like, understanding why someone murdered someone does not mean that I say that's okay. But there's a story and there's a history, and oftentimes it's rooted in trauma.
Yeah.
And I'm making a generalization because I'm not speaking about any specific murderers. I don't know where I got on the topic of murder, but like, to understand. And this is also why when it comes to business, and I think when it comes to politics, the best, just leaders, thought leaders in our world, the best of them have this compassionate empathy to navigate what someone else is experiencing, understand it, and to bridge that gap. To bridge that gap to say, let me welcome you to also see this side too. Because how else do we find compromise and move forward? So the idea of just like, this is what I believe and that's why, so many of my beliefs are fluid because our world is constantly changing. I'm constantly changing. Our understanding of our world is constantly changing, and we should be able to have that flexibility.
Yeah. Hold on. I don't think that your beliefs are fluid. I think that you relentlessly believe that humans have value. and you want.
You're right. Not all of my beliefs are fluid. Many of them are solid.
A lot of it is.
You're right.
You're trying to you know that people have value, so you want to like understand them, and you're curious about them. And so
I guess I'm willing to be wrong. Maybe that's what I would say.
Yeah, but about things that aren't as important as the value of a person.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm willing to be corrected. I'm willing to be wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, the value of a person and understanding their story is just, it's what my heart's here to do.
Absolutely.
So I can't deny it.
And that's the hill that you are dying on, that you've chosen to die on.
I mean, it's uncomfortable. Like this podcast and being like visually out there is uncomfortable for me. But the idea that even it could connect with one person, or that there's someone out there hearing that message and that helps them feel less alone, that powers me.
Yeah. Hold on. There was a quote that you reminded me of that you might have seen. I was playing on my phone just a second ago. But I was trying to find this quote. It's from a popular philosopher from when I was younger. It goes, before you criticize someone, walk a mile in their shoes. That way you'll be a mile from them and you'll have their shoes. Jack Handy. If I had said Jack Handy, then a lot of people would have known that it was going to be satire. Anyway, are you familiar with Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy?
I've heard that quote before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should frame that in your office.
Frame it in my office. Oh my gosh. I'll have no shoes. No one will have shoes. Here's some other quotes that I really like. The great gift of human beings is that we all have the power of empathy. Meryl Streep. Another one, I think we all have empathy. We may not have enough courage to display it. Maya Angelou.
Okay.
The highest form of knowledge is empathy, for it requires us to suspend our egos and live in another's world. Plato.
Plato?
The philosopher.
The clay? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Oh, man. He can't pass up the bait, but I guess that's why we keep you around. We can't get too deep without... Well, we got Oakley in
here. I'm trying to make him laugh. No, it's not working.
Dear listeners, Oakley, my bonus son, is here as a producer in the room with us today. And for any of our OG listeners, there is an episode where we actually got to interview Oakley and have a nice chat with him.
Yeah.
But he is another little highly sensitive soul, and he is such a big help on our podcast. So we're happy to have him here. And he might be sprinkling in every once in a while because I think that he gives a unique and fresh take on things too.
Well, he was featured on a reaction video.
He is. We just filmed one today. So if you want to check out some of what Oakley has to say, please go to our YouTube, check out our therapist reaction videos, and Oakley reacted to a song, Dax, To Be a Man. So there's so many things and reasons why empathy is important. It's about understanding and validating someone. So if you're in a romantic relationship, whoa, how important is it to be able to understand and validate your partner?
Totally.
And even to resolve conflict.
Yeah.
Building trust, another huge one, not just in like relationships and friendships and co-working relationships. This is important too.
Yeah, like your work wife. Is that what you're talking about?
I do have a work wife. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
She's been on the show.
She has. Katie Haynes. You can check that episode out as well. Yeah. Enhancing communication and fostering emotional growth, as well as cultivating compassion and altruism. So there's a real risk that we have when this isn't something that we are trying to cultivate, or when we're just shutting it down. I think that it's a fear that I have a little bit, and it's another reason why this podcast is something that I am passionate about, because I feel that we try to model empathy and we try to model vulnerability. And in a world that is so quick to judge, even in the comments, we got some haters. In a world that's so quick to judge, having empathy is a bold choice.
Yeah, it requires vulnerability, and that's a really difficult place that a lot of people want to avoid.
I mean, I want to actually reread Plato's quote.
Okay.
The highest form of knowledge is empathy, for it requires us to suspend our egos and live in another's world. Ego is the idea or the belief that we are right.
Yeah, and it's like
self-protection. Know all. Yeah. It's self-protective, and it tends to point the finger outwards at other people.
Yeah.
So to have empathy means that's not my prerogative. Mm-hmm. I can set that down. I want to know what's going on with you. I want to feel and understand what's happening with you. I want my heart to have ears so that I can understand what's going on inside of your heart.
Yeah.
I want to be the healing balm so that I can alleviate that discomfort. That's an example of what compassionate empathy might sound like if it had words.
I love it. Yeah, ears on a heart.
Yeah, picture that. Yeah. I have a poem here to read about empathy as well. This is, I don't know, it's an unknown author.
Okay.
The Empathy Garden. In the garden of the heart where empathy grows, where kindness is sunlight and compassion flows, a place where seeds of understanding are sown, in the soil of souls where light is shown. Through the gate of another's world we tread, with gentle steps where fears are shed. We drink the tears, we share the laughter, feeling the echoes of before and after. In this garden, no sorrow stands alone. Every joy, every pain becomes our own. We see through eyes not ours, but lent, to learn from lives we've never spent. So I think we're able to we'll never fully feel what someone else is feeling and understanding, but we're able to get an idea and proceed appropriately in a way that can alleviate that discomfort and also give us a different depth of understanding of someone else's world. Because if we're stuck in our own little world, to me, that's kind of a miserable little place to be in.
Totally. Yeah, it's, empathy is like journeying alongside somebody. I don't know, would you say that's a fair statement?
I think that compassionate empathy means let me take a break from my trail and hop onto yours, walk with you.
Yeah, and one thing I discovered, and now that we're just defining empathy and compassionate empathy, one thing that I discovered was self-compassion. And so like things that you have beaten yourself up for, like shame and guilt. Yeah. And I don't know if that even applies to the topic we're talking about. Maybe we can.
No, please. I love this. Yeah.
Okay. So, what would it look like to have empathy for yourself? Because empathy really means like shouldering another person's pain, right? So then it's not really possible to have self-empathy.
I mean, maybe that's where self-compassion comes in. Maybe empathy is the term we'd use for, it's about vicariously understanding someone else.
Okay.
But I think self-compassion is a piece of it. And when you are able to practice empathy and really understand it, it makes that other piece easier.
Yeah.
Because when you see, I can give this compassion to someone else, then why wouldn't you be deserving of that for your follies, for your missteps? And also, like I always say, this is life school. You're meant to fumble.
Yeah.
You're meant to fumble and learn from it and get back up. It's meant to be ugly and messy and terrible at times and beautiful and glorious and wonderful in others.
Right.
And I think we so often feel as though it's supposed to be this smooth, flat, not line without any valleys, without any mountains.
Yeah.
And I think that does us such a disservice because we end up shaming ourselves for everything that doesn't go right or everything that is hard.
Yeah.
Certainly, some lessons are that we are making life harder for ourselves.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, you're not meant to just dwell in it and stew in that and feel stuck.
Yeah, and I've learned that if you can give yourself compassion, then you're a lot more able to give compassion outwardly. and which then, you can be empathetic.
I think it's a symbiotic relationship between compassion, self-compassion, and empathy. Mm-hmm. So if that's a skill that anyone's wanting to develop, you might start with being a little nicer to yourself.
Yeah, because we are the meanest person to ourselves.
We would never say the things going on in our head to someone that we love and care about.
Right.
We would never.
But it's also like self-compassion becomes like a rehearsal for being compassionate outwardly. Because if you have that inner dialogue that you're so like gracious to yourself, then somebody says, oh man, I'm dealing with this. And you're like, oh, I was just having this conversation with myself. But, Well,
and you can lend that. It makes it easier to be vulnerable. Like if you're always shaming yourself, you are not going to, it's not likely for you to say all of the terrible things that you believe about yourself out into the world. And like, those are these little, vulnerability means I'm protecting it and protective of it. I don't want to share it. And being vulnerable means that you are sharing it. But I mean, like what stops us from being vulnerable, that's the way I should phrase it, is that we're being protective of it because it's too painful to share.
Yeah.
When we can work on giving that part compassion, when we can see ourselves as human beings, just learning these lessons at doing our stumbling best, then it makes it a lot easier to understand that other people are doing the same.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a blaze of glory and it's an epic mess, but that doesn't mean that person isn't worthy of forgiveness, of healing, of progress, of change.
Right.
I think too often in Christian culture, there's this, it's like a Christian, I would say Christian culture not being a true Christian. And I say that as someone who isn't a Christian. But if you're being a true Christian or you're following those tenets, that sense of compassion is woven in and that sense of empathy is woven in.
Yeah.
And too often, I think it can be weaponized if you've just grown up in Christian culture to say, I'm doing it right and you're not.
Right.
And that is not empathy.
Yeah.
So when it comes to self-compassion or self-empathy, whichever like phrasing you want to use, it's about really enhancing your emotional well-being. So first we need to learn how to regulate our emotions, and that has to do with a lot of mindfulness. Sometimes it's deep breathing. Sometimes it's listening to music. It's getting time outside. It's exercising and helping your body be able to work through emotions that way at times. But when we're able to be less harsh with our judgments, then you're able to really reduce that self-criticism, which can feel so loud when we're busy judging others and judging ourselves so viciously.
Yeah.
And that promotes resilience. Now you're going to be able to navigate the things that might have really taken you down or made you feel discouraged with more grace, with more ease. And it's clear how much that would improve relationships, because if you have that inner critic in the back of your mind, that judgment, it's coming out in unconscious ways and it's creating havoc in your relationships in ways that you may not even be aware of.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's been, like for you, the practice of cultivating self-compassion and empathy? What are the things that you've had to take time to really cultivate, to practice, to create in your life?
I mean, I learned that I was really guarded to showing myself compassion, which then kept me guarded from showing others compassion. It showed me how atrophied those like empathy muscles were. And I wonder, and that was because of just the sort of toxic masculine culture that I had subscribed to of like, take up your sword and go to battle, and like feelings just are get in the way, so I wonder how many other men like have really atrophied emotional muscles to where it's kind of spilling over into things that they didn't even realize, that now they're like bailing water in all these different areas in secret, where it's only going to fester and become worse. And it's like really just
it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, deal with it. That's the bravest thing you can do as a man is to face your feelings and like address your emotions. The wimpiest thing you can do is to resist them and suppress them and shy away from them because you're so afraid of them. You know?
Yeah, and to approach yourself with aggression or others with aggression in that way.
Yeah. Because like the whole guardedness is a form of protection, and it's a form of scaredness.
I think I really love everything that you shared, and I'm really happy that I get to know this version of you. I didn't know the other version of you.
Well, I mean, I was always like pretty transparent and vulnerable, but I had a lot of like secrets and. There was a lot, way more suppression of things.
And isn't it interesting? Sometimes we don't even realize how much we're suppressing.
Yeah. Until it like comes out, it rears its ugly head.
Right? That saying, like you like sweeping things under the rug, like eventually you got to deal with it.
Yeah.
You can't just push it down. And so often I think that in masculine and like toxic masculine culture there, man, my stuffy nose is making enunciating hard. Sorry, folks. It creates those problems that erupt into volcanoes.
Yeah.
When we suppress, there's so much that's not being said and being processed. And that visual I like to give as well, I've done it before, of like an iceberg where only 10% is above the surface, everything else is underneath. I think so often that emotion of anger that is quicker to access never touches the depth of understanding of what's below the surface, which is so often loneliness, feeling heartbroken, feeling discouraged, feeling like someone has just brushed you off, feeling unimportant, unworthy. And if that's never addressed and sees the light of day, those cycles will continue unconsciously.
Yeah.
And that's so painful for people who love and care about you.
Yeah.
Because only you can navigate that.
Right. Yeah, you gotta say something.
Your blinders are on. If you have blind spots and you're not willing to look at them, it causes so much damage that so many people don't understand until honestly it's too late and the relationship is in crumbles, or I see a lot of people realize it later in life, and that's unfortunate. So be brave, be bold, be courageous.
Be vulnerable.
Be vulnerable. Give yourself that compassion. I want to normalize that therapy is an option available to everyone. It's really important to find a therapist that you fit well with and that you enjoy working with. But there are other modes of healing too. So find what works for you and make little baby steps towards that to cultivate this sense of self-empathy and also empathy for others, because the world needs more of it. We really, really do. And, oh gosh, now I'm going to see. I feel like I maybe lost the poem that I wanted to read. Okay, I'm going to read it really fast.
Okay.
I do not wish to change the past. It made me who I am today. I only want to learn from it and live in a new way. Simple and concise, but even through that, we can give ourselves a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion.
I could have a whole episode on just that poem. Tune in next time. To be continued.
Thank you so much for watching, listening, liking, and subscribing. Please share this with someone that you know if you feel like that it could be beneficial to them. And don't forget to tune in to Delightfully Dysfunctional's YouTube video where you can see therapist reactions to music videos. We appreciate you so much, delightful humans, and we are so excited to be sharing this journey with you as we continue to cultivate our empathy and to give you as much compassion as we possibly can, because it's hard being human. See you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.